Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
Now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, but others Elijah, and others still Jeremiah or one of the prophets." And he said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he sternly ordered his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. The Gospel of our Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
I speak in the name of one God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Please be seated. When I was an undergrad, I took a class on the American Revolution. It was part of my required learning, but I was also a history major, so it was also required for my history major. And I remember the very first day of school, my professor asked a question that I have never forgotten, and I still do not have an answer for. She asked, "What would it take for you to take up arms and overthrow your government? What rights of yours, what rights of your neighbors, what liberties that you have would have to go away in order for you to decide to take up arms, start a coup, and overthrow your government?" I've never been able to answer that question. But the reason I bring that up is because this specific passage that we read today from Matthew, wars have been fought. When we talk about the Reformation, which is Martin Luther nailing the 95 Theses on the wall and the start of the Protestant church, the division from Catholicism and Protestantism, this reading led to very violent wars. This particular reading is when Jesus says, "Peter, you are the rock on which I will lay my church." And the Reformation said, "That's nice. It's a great reading. It's not overly important that it's Peter. It's important that Jesus says, 'You, son of Jonah, did not answer this on your own. You answered it because my Father has allowed you to answer it.' That's the most important part of this reading." And the Catholic Church said, "No, it's really important that it was Peter. Peter is really fundamental in this part of the reading, because Jesus laid his hands on Peter, and Peter laid his hands on the first disciples, and the first disciples laid their hands on other people, and that can go all the way down to the most recent ordination where a bishop laid their hands in the ordination, called apostolic succession. It's incredibly important that it was Peter. And wars were fought over it. So my question to you is, what part of your faith, what part of your understanding of Scripture, or of the Bible, or of Jesus, or of God, what part of your faith is so vitally important to you that you would fight over it? What part matters the most to you? And see, the really ironic part about this reading is that this reading ends with Jesus saying that you're the rock on which I will lay my foundation, and Hades will not prevail against it, and you will have all authority in heaven and on earth. And then he sternly tells them not to tell anyone that he is the Messiah. And our reading ends there for this gospel reading, but next week the reading is going to continue. This reading appears in both Matthew and Mark. Mark asks the question, Jesus says to his disciples, "Who do others say that I am?" Matthew says, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" The answer from the disciples is the same. And then Jesus asks the disciples, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answers the question in both Matthew and Mark. "You are the Son of God." In Matthew, he adds the Son of the living God. In Mark, he just says the Son of God. And in Matthew and Mark, I've learned a little bit here, where Matthew goes on to say, "You, I will lay my church upon the rock here, you are Peter." And the term church, is found numerous times throughout the New Testament, all in Paul's letters. It is only found twice in the Gospels. Both times appear in Matthew. The notion of church is only in the Gospel of Matthew. And so Mark continues on, as Matthew does, but we get this little detour in Matthew about Peter being the rock. And then Jesus tells all of the disciples what it means to be the Messiah. He says, "I'm going to go to Jerusalem. I will be handed over, and I will be crucified." And then Peter says, "No, Let's not do that. Let's just stay right here, where it's nice and safe. Let's not go to Jerusalem. So the really ironic part about this reading is that Peter answers the question correctly. Who do you say that I am? Peter gets the answer correct. You are the Messiah. And then he immediately gets it wrong. He has no idea what it means to be the Messiah. He does not understand the term Messiah. And so this particular reading has been fought over. And the ironic part about it is he gets it right and he immediately gets it wrong. But this reading, wars have been started over. So I started by asking you what parts of your faith are vitally important to you that you would fight over, that you would defend. What parts matter the most to you? And I wanted to share some of the parts of my faith that matter the most to me. The parts that I would defend, the parts that I would fight. I believe in the Bible, but the story of Jonah, which comes from our gospel reading today, you are son of Jonah. It's a great story. God says to Jonah, please go to Nineveh and tell my people that I am God. And Jonah says, no, I don't really want to do that. And God says, no, it's going to be great. You should go to Nineveh. Jonah says, I'm not going to go to Nineveh. Then he gets swallowed by a whale. He prays to God, please, Lord, save me. And then he gets spit up in Nineveh. It's a great story. It's a fantastic analogy and metaphor of what Christian life is and how it is important to do what God has called us to do and how God will protect us even when we say no. But sometimes we end up getting spit up on the shores of the place that we don't want to be. That story is not overly important to me, whether or not Jonah was metaphorically or actually swallowed by a whale. It's a great story, but I'm not going to fight over it. If you tell me he was actually swallowed by a whale, and I say, I don't know, I think it's more of a metaphor, I'm not going to fight you over that. But the parts that I will fight over are your belovedness. The fact that you and I were created in the image of God. And that you are loved by God exactly as you are. Not the person you're trying to be, not the face that you put on to the world, not who you portray yourself to be on social media, the person that you are. I will fight you over the story of the prodigal son, the story where the son goes and squanders his faith, squanders his money in destitute living, and he comes back starving and says to his father, I have dishonored and shamed you. Hire me as a hired hand. And the father says, no, you are my son. You come back as my son. I will fight you that God has no sins against us that are so great that we cannot come back as a son or a child of God. These are the parts of my faith that are fundamental to me. The part where Jesus weeps at the grave of Lazarus, where he has human emotions. The parts of my faith that really matter to me are the love of God that God has for me and the love that God has for you. And that you and I are equally created in the image of God. But what are the parts of your faith that are so fundamental to you, that are so important, that you would fight over?